unfair competitive advantages with voice technology and understanding what your voice commerce opportunities are. When we look at the evolution of shopping and how we, as a society, evolve and transform our shopping experiences. In the very beginning, we went to markets, we would trade and barter, we would go to stores in town, and it was a trip. Like literally, it was a road trip to go get whatever goods we needed. In 1902, Sears and Roebuck sent a catalog to your home. And now you could shop from your home. You had door-to-door salesmen, radio would come in with ads, cold calls, TV, and infomercials. All while these things were going on and shopping is evolving within our own home, there are stores being built, starting with a flagship store in Macy's in New York City that was a city block big. People would travel from near and far to visit this flagship store, knowing that when they enter those doors, it is going to be a whole different world. And in big cities, stores started popping up. Eventually, they moved to the suburbs with shopping malls, strip malls, and women go missing for hours at a time. But they come back mysteriously happy, so it seems to be working. We move into the age of the internet, where we have websites, e-commerce, e-tailers, mobile shopping, in-app shopping. And now we've reached the age of assistance, where our consumers want friction-free, simple, easy buying journeys. They want the personalization that they have become a marketplace of one. So they want you to understand their preferences, their buying behaviors. And they're actually okay getting ads if it's at the right time and the right place, giving me valuable content. But overall, how can you save me time and make my life easy? And the challenge is we keep buying more ads, but it seems like we're reaching less people, or maybe it's less of the right people. And more people are using ad blockers. In fact, last year in 2018, it doubled the number of downloads. It was 20% in 2017, and now it's 40% of laptop users, tablet users, mobile users have downloaded some type of ad blocker. And there's even talks of operating systems and mobile operating systems coming installed with an ad blocker that we literally just change a setting and it's turned on. So how can we influence the path to purchase if consumers aren't seeing our content, our offer, or finding our products? 90% of customers report that they use search at every stage of the customer life cycle. So let's talk about voice commerce and what is the opportunity with smart speakers. In 2018, Amazon said Alexa, Echo, or Dot were the highest selling items in Amazon globally. And it's trending still at 200% year-over-year growth. There are more than 74 million Americans that own a smart speaker. And at this pace, 55% of US households will own a smart speaker by 2022. Not only that, voice shopping has increased by 41% in 2018. And voice is expected to be a $40 billion sales channel in not even a few short years, in 3 short years by 2022. And voice in smart speakers is not only limited to the home. There were over 1 million people that have registered to pre-order Echo Auto. Now, the interesting thing is voice is becoming a part of daily life. Once people start to get used to voice, then they actually use it on a daily or weekly basis. So the people that are using voice weekly, 77% of smart speaker owners use voice on a weekly basis. 40% of them buy something. And 57% of them say they are searching for something that they would normally type in a search engine. Let's look at the Voice Daily stats. 63% of people that own smart speakers use it daily. 10% are buying or ordering something daily. 32% of those people are searching for something on voice that they would have normally typed in a search engine. And how many times per day are they using it? A majority, 1 to 2 times. But then there's still a pretty big chunk that are using it 3 to 5 times and even 6 times per day. When we look at the voice order value, about 38% are placing orders less than $20. 26% are placing orders between $20 and $50. 22% are placing orders between $50 and $100. And 28% are placing orders over $100. And the types of orders are all over the place. People are ordering something brand new. So if you think about, they're searching for something, whether it's research, discovery, comparisons, validation, social proof, and they're ordering something for the very first time on voice. There's also a group that ordered something that they had previously purchased, and a combination of both. Like they order new stuff and they replenish their stock. Now let's look at what consumers are actually buying on voice. 12% groceries, 7% prepared meal or drinks. Everyday household items, 25%. Apparel, 21%, and consumer electronics, 15%. And there's other categories, right, like music and entertainment, and I didn't include those, but voice is a new channel. Like voice is a couple years old. And people are buying everyday household items, 25%. I mean, it's crazy how quickly people are adopting it. And the rate of adoption on voice is faster than the internet and smartphones combined. But I don't want you to panic, because 60 to 70% of people still prefer in-store shopping. And it is across the ages, from 18 to 65. So depending on the age group, it might be 60, 65, 70. But as a majority, people are still going into the store and actually prefer going into the store. Interestingly enough, we're starting to finally get data in a greater volume, so statistically viable data, on how consumers actually want to interact with voice. And they see several different in-store applications of voice. The highest one is locate the product. Right next to that is learn about discounts or deals. Also looking to compare products on voice, get help, and self-checkout. And when we look at the experience by age, what's interesting is age 18 to 24, they're actually the demographic that are leading voice adoption. But the other demographics from 25 really to 49 and then over 65, they're the heavy users. The 18 to 24, they're the people that use it maybe once or twice a day. But the older the demographic gets, the higher the usage is for voice. Now, we never want to discount the fact that search is still incredibly important. And many in-store purchases rely on a strong search presence. And Deloitte did a survey, Crossing the New Digital Divide, which is a great study. And 84% of consumers' foot traffic, they used digital before or during their in-store shopping experience. They saw 40% higher conversion rates when consumers use digital during their shopping journey. And they actually add 22% more as a result of using that device. And of those, half spend 25% more than they intended in the first place. So it's very powerful to understand how your consumers are interacting with digital when they go in the store. I mean, how many of you have gone into the store to go get one thing and you know exactly what you're going to get, and you get to the aisle and you're staring at the shelf, discovering 5 other brands that you didn't even know existed? And what do? We whip out our phone and we start to compare and look at that. If you want to take a look at a great app that's doing this fantastically, look at Sephora. Sephora said people are always coming in the store and they're pulling up their phone, and sometimes they're going to Sephora, but if you're looking for lipstick on Sephora.com, you have 3,000 choices. You don't want to scroll through 3,000 choices in the store. So what they're doing is they recognize when you're in the store and the app, or there's a notification that says, hey, it looks like you're in a Sephora store. Do you want me to go to in-store mode? If you turn it into that mode, then when you're looking at lipstick, it now scales from 3,000 options down to the top 3. And it gives reviews. It gives how many stars does it have, the best thing about it, the worst thing about it. It actually gives us what we're looking for, or at least what their shoppers are looking for. So how can you make that digital experience support your brand to get that in the cart? And we have to face it. Consumers are research obsessed. Even if somebody refers word of mouth, so you ask your neighbor, you ask your doctor or family member, who's a doctor that specializes in something. If they give you a recommendation, you don't even listen. You go to Google and you search for that doctor before you decide to call. And if there are reviews by strangers that they say this doctor is awful, do not go, or maybe they're like, oh, they're okay, but they rush you in and out of the office, and you want to have time with the doctor and sit there and ask questions, you'll trust complete strangers over someone you know and trust. And the average customer journey is 100 touch points. And that's across devices, that's across channels, and voice is becoming one of those integrated channels that we can't afford to ignore any longer. And I mean, look at these. You get Tom, this dude that's 29 years old, who spent 28 days looking for a video game with 550 touch points. In my mind, Tom has no job, sits on the couch all day, playing Fortnite, video games. And then look at Anita. Anita, 120 days, 400 touch points for skincare? Really? So this is like our world now. All of these consumers have very personalized journeys, very emotional, psychological decisions that they're making as they go through this process to solve a problem or fulfill their intent. And this data, if you're not familiar with it, there's a site that is sponsored, well, it's all Google's data, pretty much. It's called Think with Google. It's got great data, all based on consumer search, behavior. Some's broken down by industry. Some is really super granular and some's not, but it tracks all the way to purchase if it can, and it gives you that data. So it's super easy to digest, super easy to read. All of these graphics that they get, you can download, you can use them how you want to kind of visually display the point that you're trying to make, like we do. And what's so important to understand is it's so much more than touch points. It's about intent. It's beyond avatars. It's deeper than demographics. It's way more personal than personas. And if we make assumptions about this, we potentially miss what could be one of our most profitable demographics because we completely bypassed them. But if we understand consumer intent, then that opens it up for massive opportunities. And this allows you to provide this highly personalized, delightful consumer experience that voice and search engines desperately want. and they reward you if you do this right, unlike ads. Now, that doesn't mean that ads go away. They will probably never go away, unfortunately. But if you understand intent and you market to intent, focusing on the problems and trying to solve and position your brand as the solution, man, it's the results that you can get are incredible. And fulfilling intent reaps mega rewards because once the search engines understand the context of your websites, the meaning of your brand, the intent that you solve and fulfill, your brand is exposed to more of the right people with the intent to buy. And that's who we want. So what we do is we can use consumer intent on voice speakers, displays, assistants, and in search to organically increase sales across all our channels. And understanding intent rewards you by the search engines, answer engines, with more organic traffic, more organic reach. You see all these stats get better. More time on page, more engagement, more clicks to page. You get higher page quality scores. And what we've seen, and we're still trying to collect enough evidence to say this definitively, but what we're seeing is when your quality score goes up on your organic pages, organic content, your ad cost and cost per click goes down. So that will stretch your advertising budget even further. And you know what happens when that happens? You can make it rain. I feel like you have to say that when you have like a make it rain gun. So I'm going to pull up Alexa real quick. You don't have to do this part because the way that we find the questions and the intent and things that people ask, you wouldn't do this part, but I'm just going to do it so I can start the demo. Open our demo.
Welcome to our demo. Ask me about fertilizing your lawn.
How many times a year do I need to fertilize my lawn?
It depends. Cool season grasses are found in the northern half of the country. Do you have cool or warm season grass?
I don't know.
Do you have clay-like or sandy soil?
Clay-like.
You should apply once per year, at the start of the growing season. Do you know what type of fertilizer you need?
No.
Because you don't know what type of grass you have and have clay-like soil. You should use Scott's Turf Builder, North. It looks like your nearest Walmart is less than 5 miles away. Would you like me to have it ready for you to pick up at the store?
Yes.
Okay. I have added 1 bag of Scott's Turf Builder, North to your Walmart and store pickup cart. Can I text you some info about how to feed your lawn?
Yes, please.
Booyah! I just sent you a text message with the link.
Can you see that? Oh gosh. It's really bright. I don't know where my screen is. So what just happened was we didn't know what we wanted, so we asked a question to our voice speaker or voice assistant to try to understand what do we need to fertilize our lawn. We can go as deep as we want to go or keep it as abstract and surface as we want to go. The point in the interaction is to make sure that we move them further and further along the customer journey. So we're moving them forward. And however we need to do that, and however many questions that takes, or however many answers that takes, or prompts, we can build it however we want to. But what happened was, once we identified what the right product was, then we were able to say, would you like me to, it looks like it's in stock at a Walmart near you, if Walmart is the path we're sending them to. And then we can say, hey, do you want me to add it to your online grocery? Do you want me to add it to your shopping list? Do you want me to add it to your shopping list? And if it's a duplicate, replace it with the branded item. So all of those things are things we can do. And at the end, we can capture their email, or at any point. We did it at the end, so we could get it in the cart and then capture their contact information. but we can do it at any point that it makes sense to do so, or we need to send them something beyond within the speaker or beyond that voice interaction conversation that's going on. Pretty awesome. How can we use voice to increase OGP, and sales? If somebody is asking a question from a voice speaker, and it could be in their car, it could be on their watch, it could be anywhere, it could be on their phone, and we understand that intent, and we can fulfill it in a meaningful way, we can add that item to OG. We can add that item to their shopping list, their native shopping list, Alexa, Siri, Google. We're not asking them to change their behavior. We're just trying to make their lives easier. We can also replace a shopping list item with your branded item. So say you have chocolate chips on your list, and I happen to know that Nestle Toll House chocolate chips are on special or on rollback, whatever the everyday low price, whatever it is, and I can send them an offer, a promo. I can send them to an event. I can ask them if they want me to replace chocolate chips with Nestle chocolate chips. What I can also do, which is incredibly powerful, is get their cell phone number so I can retarget them later. Capture emails so I can track them to sale or track them to recipes or track them to whatever I want to track them to. And I can also, if it's a pantry item or a restock item, I can add them a reminder of when it's time for them to reorder. Super awesome. And here's our secret sauce. When we go through this process, oftentimes people will say, man, if I could just get more people, more eyes on it, more people to the site, more people to the product page, we'd be golden. And sometimes that's not the case. So we actually start in a different place. We start with understanding where their mind is. What's the psychology behind what they're trying to buy? What are the emotional triggers that they have? What objections do we have to overcome? What is the intent that if we fulfill, we start to build value? And then we put things in our hands, figuring out how we can help them. How can we help them move forward in the path to purchase? How can we help them overcome this objection that's actually probably wrong, or it's misinformation on the internet, or our competitor did a great job spreading misinformation, and now it's our job to correct it and educate the consumer? So how can we lend a helping hand so they understand the benefit of using our products? And then really we want to get in their heart and be the trusted choice, a brand that they trust, someone that they take that chance on trying us for the first time, or they have trust and credibility on us to stay loyal and continue to buy our products. At that point is when we amplify and get the visibility. So we want to get more eyes on the page, more eyes on the content, more eyes to the item pages. Now let's talk about voice commerce and the opportunity with voice assistants. When we talk about voice, it is not limited to an Alexa that's in a house or your smartphone. They're in cars, they're in headphones, they're on computers and tablets, and they're in your watches. So if you have a wearable, you have a voice assistant. So it spans across 7 different devices. And over 71% of people that have voice assistants use them on a daily basis. And they think in the next 2 years, there's going to be more than 7.5 billion digital assistants. That number is crazy. So this is when people actually use their smartphone voice assistant. And this is isolated to the US, and this is just smartphone. This isn't, I'm using my speaker, I'm just using my voice assistant on my phone when I'm driving. Most common application. When I'm relaxing at home, doing household chores. It's at that moment that you realize you need something. You need assistance. You're walking somewhere. You're at work, supposed to be working, or you're in bed. Like, how many of you have woken up and thought of something and you just like pat around for your phone so you can ask a question or look something up real quick or set a reminder to look it up later when you're with friends out in the public exercising? So if you're a fitness brand and you know that maybe somebody's suffering from pain, not even fitness, it could be pain relief, and you know that there's certain things that they're going to search for that have to do with delayed muscle soreness or inflammation or whatever it is. These are all moments that you can capture in voice. And we always ask this question, like, how many people have figured it out that they know exactly what their consumer wanted? If we would have asked this question a couple of years ago, half of the room would raise their hand and be like, I have an avatar. Her name is Sheila. She's 21. She likes Seinfeld and Friends. I mean, this is like not 5 years ago, because who was watching that 5 years ago? But you were confident that you got your people. If I ask this question today, I rarely get one person that's like, I got it, nailed it. We don't know. And when we think we know, it changes. But that's how we are. We don't do things the same way. We're not searching for a dry cleaner. We're searching for a dry cleaner that doesn't use chemicals, that's open till 8 o'clock at night, because that's what I need. My intent is to get my clothes clean, but my preferences dictate who I can use and who I can't. And when we ask this question, would you rather do something the new way, which is this voice activated assistant way, or would you do something the traditional way? What's interesting is using the voice assistant to search for something is actually what they want to do the most. Would you rather use a voice assistant to search for something, or would you rather physically type search for something online? 71% said absolutely not. Voice assistant all day. But then looking at the other ones, would you use voice assistant to shop over a physical store? 36%. Voice assistant over a mobile app? 35%. Voice assistant over shopping online. So everywhere that you kind of see this gray, it's an opportunity to do it better than what we're doing today in the physical store, what we're doing today with mobile apps, what we're doing today online. Chasing consumer behavior will always be a moving target because we, as consumers, are always going to evolve. So there's so much opportunity to really leverage voice as a way to win. What's also super important to understand is voice assistants start learning on day one. They're built on artificial intelligence and they're learning constantly, trying to figure out what is your best path to purchase. When we start a voice project, we will try to understand, like, what do we think people are doing? Beginning journey, middle journey, end journey to the point of purchase and beyond. Like, what do they do after that? So we can kind of start to gauge our best assumption of what we think that journey is. But from day one, the day you turn it on, whatever happens in that voice interaction, we get that data back. So maybe we had question 1, oh, that's where people started. And then question 2, okay, a lot of people asked that. And then question 3, it just like completely derails into this other direction that we didn't even realize. So we can finally start to actually build up this web of really complex data points and touch points and interactions. And they watched a video and then they went and read a blog and then they looked at compared reviews and then they came back and did something else and then they looked at more reviews. We can now see what these different touch points and interactions and conversations are. And it might vary by the preference of the consumer. But we can start to build better experiences and understand what paths and what journeys do we have to build. And voice is dynamic. So once we have an understanding of what the general direction is, then she'll start to learn and she'll start to actually see things that we never saw with our human brains and our assumptions and our bias and our past experience. So I don't really know what's more awesome. Is it more awesome that you get this opportunity to build this awesome bond with your customers? Or is it more awesome to finally understand what actually happens as if this was a conversation with a friend? If you do voice well, you can leverage the power of voice and stop being the hunter that's chasing consumers, and become the hunted. But let me be clear. There are no participation trophies awarded in voice. You don't have the opportunity right now to advertise on voice. You don't have pages and pages of options. There is one answer. So if there can only be one answer, how long do you think that window is going to be open to take advantage of that opportunity? This is the lowest barrier to entry in a channel that I've seen literally since mid-90s, when people really didn't know what SEO was and they were just blogging for the sake of blogging. I mean, it costs nothing to actually just do keywords well. And if you did that well, you could outrank huge websites that have been around forever. And that's the same thing right now with voice. You have a window of opportunity to really just capture these intents and these questions. And as more and more people become comfortable with voice, then more and more brands are going to get hip and they're going to get on there, and you will have to compete with them for fulfilling intent. There's one answer, one opportunity. So let's think about some of the things you need to understand to see if your brand is ready for voice. You absolutely have to be future focused on where the consumer behavior is going, not where it is. Because we can always do ads, we can always do social, we can always do that stuff. And for most of us, it's a necessary evil, like we have to. But if you also carve some of that out to focus on just consumer behavior and where it's going, it's still pretty new. It's still pretty new frontier pioneering stuff. But if you do that, then you'll be playing where consumers are now. It's not where they're going, like it's where they are. Understanding intent, so much more than demographics and segmenting, and it's understanding truly how can we fulfill all of these intents that are around problems we can solve. How can you position your brand's unique voice with emotional value? Not features and specs and all that techie. It's the emotional value and the psychological value that consumers go through to make a decision. 90% of our decision-making process is emotional. Only 10% is logical. Now, we might not know that consciously, but that's how it works. It's scientifically proven. This is not like a Bethany fact. This is like real data. And if we give the consumer an engaging, interactive experience, and it's not ads, it's not something they can block, it's something they actually are trying to have with brands and companies, and the consumers want the information. but the experience is paramount. A positive shopping experience means you get deeper loyalty, greater trust, and more money spent. 80% of the consumers that have shopped using their voice assistant and are satisfied, 39% of them shared their positive experiences with friends or family. 39% of them shopped again with the same retailer. 36% have a more favorable opinion of the retailer, and 24% of them spent more money with the retailer. When you do this right, voice search can be a friction-free voice commerce play. But if you do it wrong, whew, those voice users are not forgiving. They have no problem giving you 1 star or telling people about their experience. So don't do it just because you feel like you have to be on voice. Put thought into it of how can we make this buying experience, how can we reduce friction and complexity? How can we just make it easier and delightful for them? Some of the things that you should consider when you're thinking about design. Do you know the consumer's intent? Like, can you fulfill that? You probably know what their problems are, but intent is so much broader and deeper sometimes than just the problem. And sometimes people don't realize what the problem is. So for those brands that have to educate, this is perfect because now you can actually do that education when they're asking the question. Can you improve the customer buying journey? Are you making their lives easier? Are you saving them time? And do you feel like a friend? Like, don't be that creepy robot, like Max Headroom, so 1980s, but don't be that. It's like having a conversation. And once people overcome the creepy robot thing, they actually look to this assistant or these speakers as the authority. So being found is the answer because they trust the device or the assistant or the platform. It's awesome. And just some bonus points. Can you delight and surprise them? And beyond purchase, beyond search, beyond discovery, how can you continue a meaning conversation later? Especially for those of you that have like replenishment products or pantry products, how can you bring that up? How do you know when somebody's a constant buyer and they're loyal to your brand and maybe you have new products? How can you bring that up? Maybe you want to get feedback for how their last experience was when they bought. Maybe you want to get feedback on how their product was that they bought. Like all of these things are ways that you can continue to use voice to keep the feedback loop open, to give them offers, to give them value, to give them incentives. Like it's wide open. So here's some common mistakes. The number one thing we see are people being overly promotional way before you've even earned their trust to sell to them. Here's a perfect example. I'm at a coffee shop. I notice a strapping young fellow across the room. So I walk up to him. I was like, hey, how are you? He's like, good, how are you? Oh, I'm fine. Hey, I'm Bethany. Oh, hey, Bethany. My name is young, handsome, strapping fellow. Oh, nice to meet you. And I ask him, do you want to have sex with me? How gross does that feel? Like, we didn't even get through small talk. I didn't get any food out of the deal. I didn't get any, compliments on how beautiful I look today. We skipped all that and went straight for the kill. And sometimes we get excited because we are passionate about our products. We're passionate about what our brand does. And we kind of get a little too excited and we go way too fast, way too quick, and it doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel right because there is a psychological process that we go through when making decisions to buy. So do not sell without earning the right to do so first. Voice can become this friend in the eye of the consumer. And you can establish what feels like a real relationships with your consumer. So don't mess it up. So let's talk about friction and complexity, or just simply irrelevant information. This is an opportunity to eliminate steps that are completely unnecessary. So a perfect example is I call customer service like once a year. When I call, I hear the menu items have changed. I don't know if they think I remember their menu items. I don't even know my home phone number, much less what menu items you had on your menu 6 years ago. You don't need it. It's a step that is unnecessary. And how many of you have used Google Docs? I remember the first time I used Google Docs, I was looking for the save button. And Google said, if everything's on the cloud, why do we have a save button? Because technically, we should be able to save constantly. Google eliminated the save button, which forced hundreds of software companies that were also based on the cloud to re-engineer their design process around saving. So what steps do you have in the customer journey that's unnecessary friction, complexity, and makes it harder for them to buy? Another one is acting like a robot. This is hard because we have natural language, we have conversations, and it seems easy to talk to people. It's not so easy to fake a conversation and not sound like a robot. So the less you can sound like a robot, the better. Closing the feedback loop. Like never ever close the feedback loop. You don't have to. There's no reason. And if anything, it gives you another touch point to have with your consumer and continue the conversation with your consumer even after they've bought. And the last thing is we see people design a voice experience like it's a digital experience, and it's so not. So just be cognizant of these things before you go down the path of designing the voice experience. And let's set a couple expectations. Just because you know you want to do voice does not mean you are ready for voice. So how can you want to make sure that you're prepared and you're optimized for voice success. Because if you do this right, you will get rewards from the search engines organically, you will get rewards from voice engines, and you start to build this trust and credibility and connections with all of your brands, all of your points, all of your social channels, all of your distribution channels. And ultimately, you are building the relationships and the connections and the web for the engines. They understand you. They get you. It's more than keywords. It's more than item specs or product details. It's relationships, connections, and how everything fits together in this grand scheme. Prioritize education and value, especially if you have to educate or there's misinformation that you have to kind of let people realize does not exist or is completely wrong. You want to make sure that you're fostering trust through consistency and accuracy. And you have to stay curious. And although we are data rich, but insight poor, so assume nothing. Be open, be curious, and always continue to optimize. Because if you do this well, you will have this rich, engaging experience that is like none other of your competitors or anybody else in your space. And what we really want you to do is we want you, and Wayne Gretzky said it beautifully. He said, I skate to where the puck is going, not where it's been. And that's what we do. We help future-focused brands use innovation, emerging technology, to lead and shape their industry or their category. If you want to get in touch with us, here's our information. Thank you so much.